Right, in this video, we're going to be mastering caged major and minor because, again, what we're going for is taking a single position of the scale, for example, like that, going to any key and being able to play any song or chord progression, let's say 3, 6, 3, 4, 1, 2, 5, 1, without any fuss or letter counting, sharps and flats. But to do this, we need caged major and caged minor, the full thing, because just one single gap in our checklist here is going to break this skill. Okay, so let's check out our to-do list here. We're on step 2 of 4, caged major, minor, and what we got to do today is I'm going to do a quick demo to show you the massive musical difference that this will make using 5 shapes instead of 1 or 2, and just to convince you why it's worth your effort. Then we're going to blast through all 5 forms, learn the tricks to how to use them. And then at the end, we'll do a quick little challenge so that you can get your head and fingers around these chords. And a PDF of everything's going to be attached below. All right. So if you've never heard of caged, all it is essentially just the understanding that there is only 5 chord shapes on the guitar: C, A, G, E, and D, and that everything else is just a tiny variation of those 5. For example, if I take my D shape and I take this, see a little red dot? Think of that as like the heart of the chord, and if I lower that by 1 fret, it changes the actual mood, the emotion of the chord, right? It gets kind of sad. So I can do that, let's say, with my A. If I take my happy little third there and drop it down, becomes an A minor chord. Now, because these ones here, I'm relying on open strings, these are the open form, but I can actually put my first finger back there, drag them with me, and now I have, there's C form again, but now it's a closed or movable C. There's your movable closed A, G, E, and D. So there's caged major closed, and then I just do the same thing here. Let's say I have C, take your red dot back, there's C minor, A minor, G minor, E minor, and D minor. That's all we got to do today, caged major and minor. And that's where this is. So what we just did was the closed forms, caged major, caged minor. At the very end of the video, I want to take just 1 minute to take a look at these 3 extra ones to complete the picture for the trick on the next video. All right, so chances are 2 or 3 of these already, but like I said, just one gap in that checklist and the trick's not going to work in the next video. So there's kind of something special that happens when you know all 5, and I really want to show you this. Think of it like this. The more forms you know, the less you have to move. And the less you have to move, the smoother you sound. So I'm going to play Hotel California chord progression. I want you to see and hear the difference. I'm just going to use the E form the whole time. And I'm actually going to put a sound on that you can really hear a bass and really hear the top melody as a violin. And I want you to try to imagine singing this. Well, I had to move 10 frets just between a pair of those chords, right? So with one form, you're going to get a really kind of blocky, chunky sound. Now watch what happens when I allow myself to use all 5. See, now the bass went fret by fret. You can't get smoother than that. And the top just flowed down the scale naturally, easily, slowly. So it's so smooth compared to, right? And so that's what we're going for, is once we know all 5, it unlocks all kinds of possibilities in your playing that make it a lot more fun and a lot more interesting, and sound a lot better too. All right, so without further ado, here come the 5 forms. All right, so here are our closed chord forms. We have essentially 2 pages to learn, and the second page is almost exactly the same as the first, right? So the reason we call it cage, just once more, is because we got a C form, we got an A form, G form, E form, and D form. And take a quick look at that red dot. I'm going to go to the next page. You'll see that the minor is just that red dot moving around, right? So we will start with the E form because I think that's the one most of us know. And a quick note for the fingering, the little white dashes there are the finger numbers, right? It's finger 1, 2, 3, and 4. That way, when you're looking at this again, you'll never get confused about who's who. So a little technical tip, I really recommend when you're learning a new chord, starting with the third finger because it's the least mobile. So you take care of him on the thumb first and then adapt the other fingers to that. Don't start with your dominant finger because then you're going to have a pinky that's all, is going to be reaching. So third finger, I can see it's on the A string. I'm going to put it not quite next to the metal to make a little room for my fourth finger, right? Next to the metal, they're both leaning a bit to the right. My second finger on the G string and the first finger all the way across. Now we can do that anywhere. It doesn't matter what fret it is. Okay, and the important thing to note here is the lowest root. You've got to make a note of what string and what finger. So for right now, we got the E string, right? We got the E form and the lowest is on the E string. So let's take that over to our fretboard, and anywhere I put that root will be the chord, right? There's E form. So as soon as I move it to a note, there is a B major. Now remember that third there? All I gotta do is take my middle finger off, and I've got the E minor form. So right now I'm playing a B major, B minor in E form, right? That can get confusing. There's a G minor. There's A minor, right? So the minor one, you might have a problem with the G string there. Just make sure that first finger kind of leans on its side. Don't try to get it flat. Lean it on its side. Make sure your thumb is behind your first finger. And make sure you're not over top of the fret, because then it's going to mute it. You should be able to get that ringing. Make sure that the pinky isn't touching right there, right? So E form major, E form major, and E form minor. Okay? So I'm really going to draw your attention to E string, E form. Okay? So what do you think the form I'm going to use if I'm on the A string? Well, A form. So again, I'm going to put my third finger first on the G string, make a little room for the pinky, lean them to the side. My second finger, the trick with this is actually to try to find this axis of that joint where I actually push this one a little bit to the side, and the tip will come a little bit that way, because it's hard to get all three in that spot there. Now I lay my first finger on the side and lightly touch the underside of the E string so you can strum without having that ring, right? Okay. So there's the A form major. Bring it to the fretboard. So anywhere on the A string, right? So it doesn't matter what the name of the, here's a D, right? D major. Now if I want to make it minor, same thing. I take the third. I got to refinger it a little bit. Now it's my third finger going there. A form minor. So that's a D minor chord in A form. Here's a C minor in A form. Here's an E minor in A form. E major. Right? So E string, E form, A string, A form. What do you think is going to be on the D string? D form, right? This one's a little trickier. Start again with the third finger on any fret, or next to the metal, then the fourth finger on the B string. Again, tilt that second finger over a little bit, get the tip nice and close, skip a whole fret, and then lay your first finger on the side And the only pressure I have is on the D string. I have nothing, like there's just a light touch on the other strings. Plus, just like the A string, I've got the tip of my finger lightly touching the underside of the A string. So I can strum, but I have no control over the E string, right? So when you strum, be careful. So let's bring that to the fretboard. And now the D string will control. I have D, there's E, F, G. So here's a G chord in D form. And D form is nice. It has that third at the top. It's a really pretty form. There's an A chord in D form, right? Because the root is on A. So quick review. E string, E form. A string, A form. D string, D form. Okay? This is what's really important for the next step. And I'm going to draw your attention to one more thing, is that these three, where the form matches the name of the string, it's only on like what I call the above forms. Like if my root is there, my free fingers, the rest of the junk in the chord is above that point. So for a right-handed player, that's to the right. It's high. All this stuff is higher up, right? I am above the root. Right? Same with the A form, I'm above the root. I'm to the right of the root. Same with the D form. So when you're using these above forms, the name of the string will tell you the form. E string, E form. A string, A form. D string, D form. But what happens if I have, let's say I'm playing that same chord, but I happen to be here, I'm below the root. What form do I use? And this is where some people get, most, including myself, when we got fuzzy, when we're first learning this, it's like, I want to make a chord here. What do I do? Well, I would just, we would just default to the E form, but that's a gap, right? So we have to figure out what chord form is below on the E string. Well, we only got two left, and there is the G form, right? The root's on the E string. So fourth finger, third finger, and then barring across three there, right? If you're really feeling ambitious, you can do like with the pinky up there, right on the root, or even on the B string. But I feel like that one's good enough. So let's take that, right? G form. And again, it depends on, if I play this, right, I'm playing a B major chord. Now these below forms are a little trickier, especially if you notice, I know I got 2/3 to take care of. Well, what happens if this one gets lowered? It actually goes out of reach. So all I have to really worry about with the G minor form is that guy. Right? So G minor form. Not a great strumming form, but it has its use. So right now I'm playing a B, right? B minor in G form, right? A minor, C minor, C major. All right, only one more form to go. What happens if I find my root on the A string, but I'm below? Oh, there's only one left. So, whoops, C form, right? So here we go. Third finger first, then the pinky, then the second finger. You might find that hard to reach. And then the first finger crossing just 3 strings there. The higher you go up, the more you might want to bar the whole thing. Not play it, but it's like more comfortable. So there's a C form, right? And again, it depends on the root, will be the pinky on the A string. So there's an E major chord in C form. D major C form. Right? There's a F major chord in C form. And so, review. Turn this off. If you happen to play a root with these 2 fingers, meaning you're above that point on the E string, E form, A string, A form, D string, D form. If you happen to play it here, like you're below it, it's E string, G form, A string, C form. And if I play it here, it's actually, check it out. There's my E form. Look, there's another root on the D string. So if I want to start from the D string, it's like the mini E form. It's just the top of an E chord there. See that? So, you know, when you're playing, here's a mini E form major, mini E form minor. You might recognize this if you've ever learned that song, right? So, E string, E form, A string, A form, D string, D form. Below is E string, G form, major or minor. A string, C form, major or minor. And then D string, mini E form, major or minor, okay? I actually skipped the C minor form because it's the worst. Like the worst. So I'm just going to give you a few options here really quickly. This is like the classical one, you know. You start with your third finger and then somehow skip a fret and get your pinky, you know, like that's nuts, right? And then fill in that little triangle shape there, right? So here's a few options. Forget about the B string. You got a root third fifth, it's enough. Sometimes I forget about the G string and I actually will grab these two with the bar. So third finger, okay. And if I do that, I can also put my pinky on the top. I can't strum that, it's all plucking, right? It's okay. I can also put my pinky here on a seventh. That's okay too. Or I often will do this one. Still got the seventh. Got 2/3, I don't know. So C minor form, I would, if I were you, if you're just starting this, pinky, skip a fret, second finger, first finger. Just use that. That's enough to give you a really good start on the minor cage thing. So just a last quick review. E form, major, minor, right? A string, A form, major, minor. D string, D form, major or minor. Below, G form, major or minor. C form, major or minor. And then D string, mini E form, major or minor. That's it. If you can do that, plus one more thing, we got the trick, okay? The last thing we need to do here is the half diminished. I'm just going to run through it really quick. E form half diminished, A form half diminished, and D form half diminished. So we're going to need those. And there's another video explaining those more, but you get the idea. So now for the assignment, what you got to do is take something like, for example, I'm going to use Hotel California, and that's kind of what the demo was, is essentially the assignment. And what we got to do is play any song that you want to play and do it entirely in one of those forms. So if I want to play Hotel California, let's see here. Those are the chords. And I got to use, let's say I'm going to use D form. I got to find a B minor in D form, then an F sharp major, right? Then an A major. So it's going to really force you to know, okay, if I am on the D string, right? How am I going to find a B? Well, you know, D, E, F, G, A, B, D minor form, right? So you'd go around and you'd find F sharp major, right? A major, E major, right? So that wherever that root goes, so if you wanted to use A form, you'd have to use the A string, etc. So try playing a full song exclusively in one form. It's an incredible exercise. And then the second part of that would be play the same song, but try to choose the form that's as close as possible. And I'll do another video on that. That's kind of the trick, but just see what you can do. And, you know, if I have a B minor here, rather than going to F sharp major in E form, my closest F sharp is on the A string, so I would use A form. My closest E here, or A here, I would use D form. You know, and it will start getting you thinking, okay, I need to find this specific chord. You know, what form do I need? Where is it closest? And all that kind of stuff. So I hope it helped. Let me know if it might have been too much for one video, but see you next time for the trick.